want you to be part of the discussion too, man. Believe me. Charlie, you got speaking roles also. Charlie can jump in.
Yeah, on the meteor, they found zero point 0.6 micromoles of material.
It's not an awful lot.
Yeah, what's a mole? I want the proper answer, not a joke.
Well,
What- what-
I honestly couldn't. I honestly couldn't explain it to you, and I will hand that over to someone else.
A mole is
I
supposed to.
believe is. No, go
Sorry.
ahead.
I was just gonna say, supposedly it's a bunch of atom pebbles, 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd power number of pebbles. So that's 6.23 times 10 to the 23rd. That's going to be moving the decimal over like 23 places to the right. So if you divide by 3, that's like 7. So 623 septillion atoms in atom pebbles, something like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's the quantity of atoms.
Well, like you said, it's pebbles. So a mole of a large molecule of a substance would be more than the mole of, say, hydrogen or something like that, which is just small. So it's counting the units of a substance. I think.
In atoms, yeah. In atoms.
Now you know why I handed this one over.
But since we've never seen these pebbles, with neutrons and protons in the center with electrons whirring around them as the pebble, I try to keep my mind open to what the atom could or could not be. And when they came up with the Avogadro's number for the mole in the first place, they took gases and compressed them down as far as they could, and they got like a general average for the rate of compression, and from that they derived indirectly the atom, but it's not like they counted it out. So it looks like it's a theoretical process that we might need to look into a bit more.
All right, okay. So it's like temperature. The volume of a gas, and the energy is because it's like an average then.
Yeah. Every time you freeze the unit of gas, it goes down a unit of volume, and I think the multiple that they got was like 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd, something like that. It was used to derive the number.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We know what the structure of an atom is. We know how they're put together.
And for the most part, I believe you guys, but without seeing is believing, and I am the eternal skeptic on that level. I would probably go with some sort of folding of the ether into various shapes: a proton here, a quark here, a lepton there. It just depends on how the fabric is folded.
You're the eternal skeptic, but you've never seen the ether, a fold, or any of these things that you just talked about at all, ever. Yet you're happy to believe that, even though we've got demonstrable science that says we've got good cause to believe the model we have.
Well, we need to look at the other ways that we see reality. Most of the time, when you have something like a light wave or a wave period, you need to have a medium to wave. That alone implies the ether. So for a skeptic like me, that's good enough.
That's not skepticism, that's gullibility.
It's skepticism. But believability with the ether.
But you believe in the ether. You've never seen it.
Yeah, but wait a minute. Can I just say something before? All of Maxwell's equations are based on the fact that there's an ether. So, what you got to say about that then?
Did Maxwell think the Earth was flat?
That's non sequitur, my friend. We were talking about the
bloody good question.
That was no, actually it wasn't. That was weak.
Oh yes, it is.
That's called a distraction, my friend. We were having a discussion here. That's all, and you're trying to derail it. So let's get back there. So the thing about
I mean it's the fact that at the time there was a prevalent theory. Now Maxwell's equations do not require the ether to be present.
But
what he did was adopt the standard theory of the time into his equation.
But they worked.
Well, we also have to look at the mind that made these equations, and if the mind believed in the ether that may be something, it would be murderous to take the things that we want from his brain and leave the process that allowed such brain to make those equations in the first place. It's murder to cut out what you want and leave the rest of the dead body.
Oh, nicely
What
put.
what on earth are you talking about?
I got
It's
it.
not
Understood.
And Lemon Bird,
Come on,
what
Brenda.
shape did Maxwell think the Earth was?
Immaterial, but he probably thought it was a globe.
the man is dead. How can we kill him? He's dead.
Hey, can I shout out another super
Yeah.
chat? The second super chat today from Mr. P. Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. He said, "I could afford more, but I just hate you, Gonzalez." Hey, thank you, Mr. P. I love you too, man.
But Brenda, what I'm talking about is I'm getting metaphorical, not literal murders and he dies, but an analogy. You're taking the part of the electrical equations that work, but you're leaving the ether because you don't want it. That's taking part in cutting out the thing that made the whole possible. That's like cutting off someone's arm, and leaving them to bleed to death because you like the ring on their finger. It's somewhat like that. It's murderous. You have to look at the whole thing.
And it's
Oh.
not based on the ether.
We
Is it?
left out the ether because we proved it doesn't exist.
Not really. They abolished it because it proved that the Earth was not moving.
No, that's not what the experiment was about. It wasn't to prove whether or not the Earth moved. That's not what the Michelson-Morley experiment was intended to do. Didn't have
It
anything
doesn't
to
matter
do.
what it
That's
intended to
correct.
do.
That's-
In fact, it's even better that they didn't intend to do it because you find unexpected truths that surprise you when your
Exactly.
will is taken out of the equation, especially if you have a will to deceive and lie. So thank God for surprises like that.
Yeah, that's exactly
those-
right.
But we know that the ether doesn't exist. If you look it up, right, it doesn't exist. We proved it doesn't. It isn't there. And light doesn't need a medium in which to travel. It is its own medium.
The notion of traveling becomes meaningless unless you're going through something. How do you know if you've gone from point A to point B if there isn't something to
I
measure
get-
your motion against in the background? In a vacuum, the way that you seem to be implying for light to be able to travel through nothing in a vacuum, motion would be impossible to note because there would be nothing in the background to measure the motion against.
I have a point to making here, and I think it could be very interesting. So, Walter Bisling, hopefully you're listening. I don't know if I haven't heard you in a lot of hangouts and calls like this. If you want to maybe tell us if your calculator and the stuff you do on your model have to do anything with what they're talking about, because I think this stuff you take in consideration as factors that you can key in your advanced calculator if you want to speak. If not, it's okay, but it would be cool to hear your take on it. You're muted now if you want to jump in. But carry on, guys. If you jump in, we'll give him a chance to speak up and see.
Oh, okay. So, the real world doesn't always obey the way we think it ought to. People used to think that, yeah, light is a wave, therefore there must be a medium, let's call that the ether. But it turned out that we were wrong. We showed that there isn't a medium, there is no ether. And so we had to, from that, we developed our central ideas about quantum mechanics. The universe isn't required to conform to how we think it ought to be.
That is true. But the thing is, you hear them talking about quantum fluid, quantum foam, space-time fabric, space-time curvature. How can a vacuum curve? Curving is a physical operation. And if the space can curve, it can straighten out as well. It can curve and straighten out over and over again, much like a wave, much like a medium that is waving, much like the ether. It seems like we're talking about the same thing.
Yeah, they replaced it with a Higgs field because if you look at actually what the Higgs field does, it acts exactly like what the so-called ether, and plus they changed the ether. It was 1 minute it was static, then it was elastic, then it would expand and contract, because what kept happening, they came up with ether, they did experiments and said, oh, right, well we've got the ether there, but this is doing that means the ether must be expanding as well, it must be elastic. So they're doing exactly what they did today. They just change, they come up with an idea, like they say, oh, this is the medium, and then they find out it doesn't quite work. So they just say, oh, well, it must be elastic, or it must be bendy, or something like that. But they've just renamed it the Higgs field, stuff like that.
Maybe we could call it the Higgs boson ether field or something. I mean, a lot of times you dig up. I like the sound of that, the Higgs boson ether field.
What is a boson?
Yeah.
What is a boson, Lemonbird?
As of like a couple months ago, I thought it was the thing that gave you gravity, but some people say that the Higgs boson's real. Some people say that it's fake because you can't separate the signal that you're getting from the background noise. And there's such a rush for funding and a rush for the Nobel Prize. Sometimes decent science and decent criticism of the science goes out the window. So I don't know. I thought it was the gravity particle, but I don't know.
What does the boson have to do with light or electromagnetics in any way, shape, or form?
The main thing is they're willing to call the ether anything else but the ether. It was just a way to have, somewhat of a compromise, and have the ether and have the Higgs boson if that's what we want to. Because it looks like we're talking about
the Higgs boson has nothing to do with the propagation of electromagnetics or light. We can discount that as being what you're postulating as the ether, which is a medium to carry electromagnetism and light.
So what's the Higgs boson field?
It's what gives objects
Mass.
inertia. Yeah, inertia, right? Because that's what mass is resistance to acceleration, right?
No, it doesn't actually. No, it doesn't. It's like it can. The Higgs field, you could liken it to the core of a computer. Right. What it does is, what that Higgs. Sorry,
I was going to answer Lemon's question. There's no Higgs boson field. There's a Higgs field.
It's good. It's good. Yeah, Higgs field. That's what I said. Right. But the boson.
Oh, sorry, I was talking about a Higgs boson.
Right, the Higgs boson. Right, I'm going to tell you that. Right, the Higgs boson. If you want to look at it as like in computing, for example, it's like the VLC player, right? And what it does is it interacts with the Higgs field to tell particles what to do. For example, so it's a package. It's like acts as a package, and it comes to the core of the computer, and the core of the computer says, "Oh, this is what you have to do," and then the Higgs boson relays that message to the photons, protons, whatever you want to say. So
can I get a mic check? Can I get a mic check from Alchemy to see if it's working now?
Yeah, can you hear me all right?
Oh yeah, loud and clear.
It's excellent.
Yes.
Ali, when you're done, give Brian a chance to, because he was going to say something, and you continue going. So let us know when you're done. We give Brian an.
Oh no,
he interrupted me. He interrupted me, but I'll shut up anyway.
No, I was saying, no, Ali, go on. I got out what I needed to. We were about to go down something that was said incorrectly. I just wanted to correct it, and I incidentally interrupted you. Please go on, Ali.
No, that's all right. I finished anyway. That was the best kind of explanation I could give what a Higgs boson was in the Higgs field. The Higgs field is like the core. It knows. It's like the boson comes. The boson comes to the Higgs field, and it asks what it's to do. The Higgs field then relays that information, and the boson will turn into a photon, proton, electron, or whatever. It's just like the core of a computer. It doesn't actually do anything. It just relays information, says this is your job, and that's it. And the boson's
what's the fundamental thing that it does to particles passing through it?
Apparently, it asks them questions.
What do you mean? What does what? Say that again. What was that?
Particles that interact with the Higgs field are given mass.
They don't, and that's the point. They don't actually interact with it. It's the
I've
Higgs
actually
boson
just
that
posted
interacts.
the article that's come from. I will now post my source.
Yeah.
Just so we're clear.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's.
So
like
in quantum,
Russ, I like how people post a source to something, but you can go and find other sources from the same reputable people that have different theories and how this thing actually interacts with anything. So I mean,
Well, that's how I was described. That's how it was described to me what it done. That's all. I'm doing what everybody else does.
If they actually knew what the hell it did, they wouldn't be investigating it, right? They wouldn't be conducting science and trying to figure out what the hell it is. So
I gotta jump in for another super chat. This one is good. It might be a trigger one, but thank you, Mr. P. Mr. P is the superstar today on super chat. I appreciate your support, man. He says, "No vaccinations." Boom! Man, the fuck up, people. Thank you, Mr. P, for the super chat. I appreciate it.
Well, if you don't get vaccinated, you'd have to use another alternative protocol like colloidal silver, high quality nutrition, and purple iodine to strengthen your glands for fighting immune infections.
Don't take advice from him, please.
So we're talking about Higgs bosons and quantum field theory. So the idea in quantum field theory is that you have fields. These fields fundamental that are fundamental. So, and that particles are associated with the field, right? So you have the various electromagnetic, the weak and strong fields, and they all have particles that are associated with them, because according to the rules of quantum mechanics, fields can only come in discrete units or quanta, as I understand it, right, Dress?
Yep. I'm now posting direct from CERN.
Yeah, and it's a real problem. It is a real problem about sources, because there's all kinds of sources on the internet that say all kinds of things. And so when I want to look up ideas about science and physics, I certainly don't go to the first result that pops up in Google. I take a look at those sources and I see which ones I think are more reputable than the others. Wikipedia is okay, but then there's others that are. Well,
Wikipedia. Okay, so for instance, here's a source from MIT regarding your quantum stuff, and this is why I get into this quantum manifestation or spontaneous manifestation. So it says the direction of a photon emission and atomic recoil is not predictable, and well-collimated atomic beam of excited atoms will spread laterally because of recoil associated with spontaneous emission, which they don't know. They know that it happens. They don't know why.
What does that got to do with boson?
Well, you're getting into quantum, so...
No, but what does that have to do with the point at hand, which is the Higgs boson field and everything that I've ever read adds mass due to the interaction with the Higgs field?
Yeah, that's what I've read also.
Yeah, but the thing is with mass, the Higgs field doesn't create mass.
I never said
it's interaction. So why did you mention mass and it's interaction?
Everything is an interaction, right? Because that's just how physics works.
Mass, according to quantum physics, is the interaction between the gluon, between the two quarks, and that's what gives it its mass. The gluon interacting with the quarks.
Yeah, it makes whatever the thing is what it is. It makes it resist acceleration or to have inertia. That's my understanding. Could be wrong, and that's what we call here mass, right? That's my understanding.
And the Higgs boson tells because it has to have a command. These photons, it needs a command to say, hey, you're a photon, you're a proton, you're whatever, right? And the Higgs boson relays the information from the Higgs field to tell that whatever the request that's been sent in that creates the photon and stuff like that.
So
That's what
I
that
just
is.
posted a quote
Yeah, good for
from
you.
CERN that says that doesn't quite agree with what you're saying.
Right, well,
And maybe
you tell
they're
me
using
what they say.
colloquial English and not not scientific English. I don't know.
It's
And
very
maybe I
likely.
haven't read. Yeah,
Well, how
Yeah.
do they describe it then, Bruce? I'm always
I've
open. I'm
literally
just
just posted it in the chat, in the Daily Boom chat.
Oh,
So this
It's
is
okay.
back.
have you not read it?
So
Yeah.
that sounds a lot like the ether to me. I'll take it.
But you've never seen the ether.
Have we seen these Higgs fields?
We've detected them in the CERN collider. Yeah, we
Yeah,
have.
you detected interaction that is coming off of what's unseen. These ether interactions are just as detectable and just as unseen. Light's going slower against it, faster
No,
with it.
we've actually
Same
found
feel-
the particle.
same,
That's the whole point.
Same
That's what-
standard of evidence
Well, we
consistently
found the
applied.
particle. It's not an inference. We found the particle.
I'm
I will
sure
not-
that the temporary folding manifestation of the ether, and you'll find thousands of other particles from the temporary manifestations
Why aren't you skeptical about
of
that?
unending.
Let me. Yeah, can I read a comment from Walter Bisling? He just typed in the chat. He say part of the mass comes from the interaction with the Higgs field. Part comes from the binding and other energies like internal motion.
Yeah, the
No,
thing
I disagree.
the thing to understand about physics, at least, or as far as I understand it, is that everything is an interaction, right? Because the reason that we have these phenomena that we experience in our ordinary world is because they're particles at a level that we can't perceive that are interacting with each other, and they do so in different ways, but they do so in predictable ways.
Yeah, but Brenda, but the information, right? Something has to give the information. A photon doesn't give the information to say, here, I'm a photon. It gets told it's a photon. And that's what the Higgs field does. It tells it what to do.
Yeah, I don't understand what that. I don't
It
understand
could be.
that.
It could be a conditional interaction. So if conditional interaction is A, you become a photon. If it's B, you become, say, an electron. I don't know. It's way outside my physics.
Yeah.
Right, and the thing is, the beauty of that is, right, and the thing that we're getting out of this is, right, I'm seeing something that I've read, and it's come from a peer-reviewed paper, right? You've sent one from CERN, which says something totally different. So that tells me that nobody knows.
I don't think it does. I think if you post that paper will probably postulate what's on CERN's website that CERN have probably written in colloquial English. That's what I would suspect to observe.
So that you could understand it.
I probably could understand the gist of it.
Another big shout out to Mr. P. Thank you for the support, man. I appreciate the super chat. He says, Lemon Bird. More like sour baby. Keep it up, Jose. I will keep it up, Mr. P. Thank you. Lemon Bird, when you hear comments like this, how does it make you feel?
Well, going back to the origin of life, it seems like an alternative cosmology was offered instead of the scriptures. And now we're offering faith to materialism to eventually give us answers which may never be delivered. We may need to go back to the revelation of the person who knows God and see what he has to say about it, as opposed to changeable, mutable, temporary men.
Yeah. Could you get him in here? Could you get God in here, please? You just give
pray and ask him for revelation.
I have never.
Dear Lord, please give us revelation. Amen. Simple.
He has never answered me.
I'm speaking for God right now. Go ahead, ask your question.
Oh, thank you so much for sending your son Jesus. Hallelujah.
Yeah, praise be.
Any
Hail
questions?
Satan.
And to answer Wolfgang, and to
Oh, we're going to go to religion now, I guess, huh?
I was going to say to
No.
answer
Let's,
Wolfgang.
hold on, guys. I want to hear Brian,
I'm
please.
speaking for God right now. Nobody has a question.
Hold on, Maxwell. Brian, go ahead, man. See if you can go.
That's it. I'm sorry. I'm actually going to apologize for saying that entirely. Let's get back to point.
Back to science.
Yeah, let's
Science.
science
Oh.
and not religion. Science is not based on faith, and it's not based on religious belief, and so that's not a good way to know things.
Well, there's certain things that are taken on faith in science that are unproved. It seems like another religion on that level.
Let me get a chance over here, Discord, because Alchemy is here, and you type in interesting comment in the chat. You want to speak up? We'll give you.
I am here. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yes,
Uh-huh.
yes.
The recent comments comparing, I've heard this repeatedly. Faith in science, materialism. I don't agree with that distinction. There are certainly unanswered questions, and often in science, every discovery leads to more questions. So it's not like science is actually reducing the total number of questions out there. It is certainly checking many off the box, but I, as a scientist, don't feel like I have faith, as the commenter was describing, in unanswered questions.
There is a faith that's there nonetheless, whether it's acknowledged or not. You have to have
How do you
faith
define
in your
faith?
senses to basically it is belief that things will be in the future as they were in the past, or as they were foretold of in the past in the future. You're not there in the future, you don't know. You have to have faith in your ability to see reality, to accurately catalog reality, and accurately catalog everything that is going on in reality. You have to have faith in uniformitarianism, that things now were the way that they were in the past and will ever be thus. That atoms will always act this way, that particles will always act
I
this
don't
way.
describe
And
that as
it's
faith.
going to be a new segment of science that is discovered, which blows the lid totally off of what happened in the past. Those are faith-based propositions which can't be verified.
Lemonbird,
You're
you're
running over a
monologuing
bunch of stuff
horribly.
without pausing. I don't describe that as faith. That's so you one of the several topics you touched
It's
on
faith
was
in materialism
uniformitarianism.
nonetheless,
Please
because
don't
you don't know the future.
I waited until you were done talking before I started talking. But the idea that so-called characteristics of reality, such as gravity, was uniform in the past and will be uniform in the future. I don't have faith that that's the case, or something more akin to my own field, that human biology, 2,000 years ago is going to be equivalent to what it is today. I have confidence based on what's reported over the last hundreds or so odd years of scientific literature, 50 really for modern scientific literature, and confidence that that will continue in the future. But I don't say absolutely that some fundamental aspect of that might not change.
Fair enough, but the framework that you've been given is one of materialism, and anything that points outside of that materialism towards, say, a creator or a god is filtered out actively. So all we can do is just put cards on the table, admit the faith that's there, the lack of faith that's there, the atheism, the theism, the materialism, the lack of materialism. That way we can go forward honestly.
Wait,
What
Lemon.
happens-
Wait, Lemon. Why on earth are you assuming atheism just because he may hold to the idea of evolution, the world being round, and a certain cosmology? How would that disqualify him from having belief in a creator?
Materialism is a denial of the spirit. Anything that is supernatural will be given a materialistic, natural explanation in an outward and very
That's wrong.
active denial of the world of the spirit. No spirit world, no God. Game over.
You didn't really address his question.
Inaccurate. That's horribly inaccurate and entirely inconsistent with several dozen close
It's the nail on the head.
coworkers of mine who are staunch Christians, devout, sincere Christians, who certainly philosophically apply materialism to science, because when endeavoring to count, to measure, to describe the physical world, appealing to the supernatural is not effective. I mean, it is part of the philosophy of science to study nature with natural means. But I know many people who have no problem existing in a both material and a spiritual world. This dichotomy you're creating seems to only exist in your narrative.
Yeah, in practice, people can hold ideas. They can believe in a supernatural world and practice science, because science is simply the application of empirical methods. So I don't, unless somebody has a way of testing what spirits are and put them in a lab, then you just can't test it. You can't test something that can't be put into an empirical method. But so science basically doesn't concern itself with that thing, and so people can believe in a supernatural or spiritual world. They can believe in gods, lots of gods. They can be Jewish, they can be Muslim, they can be Hindu, and they can be Christian, and they can still do science.
Well, it's not that you can't do science, but there's no such thing as a paradigm neutral observation. You have to have a worldview to frame your observation, so you know what to do with it and how you're going to handle the fact. Take, the Bible saying that the earth is flat. Many Christians have tried to reconcile their religion to science and say, we're just going to look at that as, metaphorical. But laser tests are backing up what the word
Can I just
says.
quickly call you on this, because you're just going down a reductio ad absurdum route.
Is religion subjugated to science, or science subjugated to, or rather, God subjugated to man science, or man science subjugated to God at that?
They're not subjugated. They're just separate.
Another exists and other doesn't.
But it looks like God's word is being verified and panning out where man science is failing. So maybe we need to, kind of take a gut check.
The Bible doesn't say that the earth is flat.
It says it's pressed out like clay under the seal. That's flat.
It
says it has a firmament and it has pillars on top of a watery deep.
It's just metaphorical.
That the firmament keeps out the waters above under the heavenly throne of God.
That's just metaphorical language. A lot of theologians today would tell you categorically the Bible does not teach that the earth is flat. By far, I think most theologians would say that. That's your interpretation.
They're reconciling to man's science.
That's your
They're not
paradigm.
reconciling to the word of God, though, and that's dangerous. That makes a secular spirit where you're willing to throw out God for man.
No, they're not. They're not throwing out God.
This is a shallow conversation.
Well, it's what we have.
Yeah, let's move on to something else.
I was actually enjoying that, but there you go.
Why? It's an endless argument.
But everything we talk about when you've got
for God and a will against God, and men will steer science toward that end. If people want to forget about God, they'll make a 500-year scientific edifice to forget about him. Atheist evolution, atheist Big Bang, atheist Marxism, walking away from God. If that's what they want,
we got it.
That's a pretty close-minded view you have there, Discord.
We got you, Lemon.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is very close-minded, because there's a great many theologians today who would completely disagree with that. You're not the one who gets to say whether or not somebody's a Christian or not, Lemon.
I just call it as I see it. You just put your cards on the table. That way, there's everything is revealed.
Yeah, but you're not the authority. You're not the one who gets to
God
tell.
is.
Yeah, but you're not the one who gets to tell other people whether or not they are spiritual or religious, Christian or Jewish or Muslim or Hindu. It's not you who gets to decide these things.
All right, guys. I've been a little over 3 hours.